Just a reminder, our two sponsors of the day are MyoCore and Cycle Bar Leewood. The third presentation for Body Day will have two presenters, Whitney Harken, LSCSW, and Jessie Milliken, a graduate counseling intern. Whitney is a therapist with Resolve Counseling and Wellness. She believes that we live in a world that makes healthy living confusing and oftentimes makes us feel an immense amount of shame and guilt. She feels honored to walk alongside those wanting to find balance, meaning, and self-confidence in themselves. She often works with adolescents, adults, and families to ensure that they have the tools and resiliency to live a life they value. Whether you're questioning if therapy will make the difference you've been craving, or if you haven't found a therapist you've connected yet with, she would love to support you and make strides in a new direction. Jessie is also a graduate counseling intern with Resolve Counseling and Wellness. Jessie's goal is to give a voice to those who are often silenced due to their age or past experiences. By using open communication, honesty, and compassion, she works to be a safe and supportive person for all her clients. Jessie's approach is to partner with clients to meet their desired outcomes of mental and physical health. She uses a trauma-informed care lens to understand different clients' experiences and meet them where they're at. Jessie wants all her clients to leave session knowing that they have at least one person on their side. Whitney and Jessie's presentation is Nourishing Your Body During a Pandemic.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I can definitely say this is my first ever virtual presentation. So it's definitely a whole different ballgame not being able to see your faces. So I guess I'm just going to pretend like you guys are nodding your head and smiling and yeah, to make it easier. So I'm glad you guys are here and being willing to kind of listen and learn and hopefully leave feeling a little bit more excited and positive about how to take care of yourself. Thank you, Hannah, for that introduction. I will say it definitely is a personal and professional passion of mine to do this work. I have two little girls which has kind of, I would say, empowered me to be even more passionate about this topic, if you will. Also wanted to just give a quick disclosure that I don't have any specific disclosures, but I do want to honor my privilege. And I think that's important as in our work as clinicians, but also right now, especially in this time that we're living in as human beings. And I know that being a white, female, cisgender individual in a smaller body provides different privileges. And it changes the lens that I look through life with and my work with. And so I just think that's important for all of us to remember as we're kind of forming opinions and beliefs, which is again why I'm also always open to learning and growing from everybody I meet. For example, this presentation, I gave a similar one with like similar beliefs, of course, and methodology last year at the retreat. But even since last year, I've grown, I've evolved. And so I'm trying to bring you guys even more new information than I did last year. So I'm excited.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm Jessie. Similarly, I agree with everything she said as far as acknowledging our privilege and just the lens that we see everything through. I, as they mentioned, am a social work intern, and so I will get my master's this May and then plan to get my clinical license. And I'm also just very passionate about this, but I'm also learning. So Whitney and I are going to kind of tag team this today and go back and forth a little bit. Yes.
I'm going to pull up the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so our plan today is, let me get it up here, talk about what holistic health is and why we cannot just learn how to lose weight. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution to kind of lose weight and what impacts your health and kind of what holistic health is, the different risk factors, as I mentioned, that affect your health and your wellness. And then if we don't have a solution, a one-size-fits-all solution, then how do you feel better and how do you get healthy? And then the first code word today is balance. So if you want to take a moment and write that down, the first code word is going to be balance. So we're going to kind of jump in here to what holistic health is. And this just kind of says that our health is really a puzzle. So it views it as all of these different things that make up our health and our wellness kind of fits together as a puzzle. So that's our mental health, our physical health, emotional, spiritual, and social health, and how they're all interconnected. And if we're valuing or prioritizing one of those pieces over another, then it's going to have an imbalance. And so it's really just about balancing it and kind of being graceful with yourself. And then the statistic on here says that 95 to 99% of diets don't work in the long run. And you just keep gaining the weight back. And so if you feel like it's not working for you, then maybe it's not your system, it's not your willpower, it's a society that wants us to continue to be in diet culture. They make money off of it, they profit from it. So you're set up to fail.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge important piece of the shame that is built into diet culture, right? And the reason why we're talking about it, especially now, is because during the pandemic, diet culture has grown. It has been fueled. It is now more profitable than ever. And so we have to look at that with a really, really critical lens, because they are more profitable during the pandemic, the diet culture, right, which is a multi-billion-dollar, as in a B, billion-dollar industry, more profitable than they've ever been during a time of global trauma, right, and stress. And that's really, honestly, kind of overwhelming to me, you know, to think about that when the medical community, for example, we need more money and resources to help people, but the diet industry is booming, right? I think that's just a good example of they are going to thrive off of people's pain and looking for answers and quick fixes. When the truth is that there is inherent shame when you are given a script or you are given a plan for a quick fix, right? For that diet. If you just lose the 10 or 15 pounds, you're going to feel so much better. Your depression's going to be gone. You're not going to be socially anxious because you're going to feel really comfortable in your own skin. And to be honest, it's total BS, right? Because the thing is that those diets, even those individuals that created those diets, they know that they don't work in the long term. There's literally no evidence to say after 2 years, any diet is successful in what it's aiming to do. Diets are meant to fail so that we get back on them, right? So that we try again, so that we download the app and pay the monthly subscription fee, or we buy the cookbook again, or we do the meal plan again and again and again. So if you feel like you're one of those people that, oh gosh, I fell off the wagon again, or gosh, I have so much more time on my hands during the pandemic, why can't I just do this right? I want you to tell yourself that you're not supposed to do it right. That actually what you're doing by falling off the wagon is beautiful. It's your body saying, I'm not going to do this. Like, I need those carbs. I need the protein. The diets, anything that's restrictive or that takes something out of what you should be fueling your body with, your body will eventually take over and say, I need that. I need that to survive. And so it's actually a really cool thing. When you fall off the wagon, for example, that they like to say, that's your body taking over and doing what it needs to do. So give yourself some kind of grace and self-compassion in that.
Yeah, and especially in a global pandemic, and it's really taking advantage of people when they're feeling higher stress and higher anxiety, and then the diet industry to come in and feed all of these things when really we just need to be caring for ourselves, giving ourselves some grace. And then we're going to talk about intuitive eating today. And so when we talk about that, we don't mean eat everything you want all of the time. And just, we really are talking about reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with your body, listening to what you need and what you want to feel your body. Just like she said, with it's not falling off the wagon, it's really giving yourself what you need.
You know, another thing I think is a good example of this, and I think we're probably all going to have, you guys are going to have examples that come to your brain when I talk about this, is this: we cannot tell someone's health by the way they look, right? It's impossible. So for example, you can probably think of a lot of clients, friends and family who maybe appear healthy, but they could be extremely depressed. They could be suicidal. To me, that's not being in a state of health, right? I just have a flood of stories from this, but I had a colleague previously who was losing weight very drastically. And during that process of losing weight, as she was going to doctors and getting all these tests, right, she was getting praised for, wow, you look so great. What are you doing? Are you on a diet? Like, what's happening? Not to mention she was in the eating disorder field, as I am. And she was getting a lot of praise and a lot of affirmation on the way she looked. And inside, she was terrified. And it turned out, right, that she was struggling with thyroid cancer and was not wanting to lose weight and wanted it to stop and couldn't. And
that was very scary for her. And it was also kind of that lived experience of, as a society, as a culture, we tend to praise weight loss. We tend to praise someone's physical features, when really, as a culture, it would be so much more beautiful and valuable if we could kind of shift and start praising people for who they really are and how they brighten their day, how you bring so much comfort when I see you, you make me laugh, right? Praising and noticing people for who they are, not how they look, because we never ever know what someone's going through that could be triggering those physical changes. One way or the other.
And we were talking about this before our presentation, even during the pandemic is a good example of somebody who looks and appears very healthy, but might have an underlying chronic condition that we don't know about. And so just understanding where everyone's at, that everyone's in a different place. And yeah, just again, understanding or respecting people and liking them for who they are and not what they look like.
Yeah.
This graphic is the social determinants of health, and we really
like this because it kind of shows everything that goes in to your health and what determines if you are a quote unquote healthy person or your well-being. And it's not just working out and eating good food. This is the environment that you're in. And so really we are at the center of this, and our healthcare system affects this. So if you have access to healthcare, even preventative care, vitamins, things like that, economic stability, the ability to find a job, to have access to even training programs. If you lose your job during a pandemic, it might not be as easy to buy those nourishing foods, anything like that, your neighborhood and your physical environment. If it's safe for you to go outside and be active, if it's safe for your kids to play in the yard in your neighborhood, just the physical environment you live in, if you have access to being able to be active and stay safe. Education, so understanding what is healthy, what nourishes your body, what you need, knowing that it's not just the one size fits all diets, and having that sort of access to the education. Food, this sounds pretty simple, but having access to those healthy foods. If you are on food stamps, it is a lot harder for you to get access to produce and to fresh food. We talked about this before too, in that I heard on NPR a statistic that said over 50% of people in Kansas City have to take the bus 2 hours round trip to the grocery store. So we talked about it's going to be heavy for you to carry the fresh produce and things like that. And that's not what you need in that moment then. And how often can you go to the grocery store if it's 2 hours round trip? And so really thinking about those different things. And then also just your community, your social contacts, your culture, how you were raised, the foods that bring you joy and your culture was raised on may not be the same foods that society is telling you are healthy. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so, the thing is, right, there's a lot of shame and judgment around this term of emotional eating, which I talk to my clients all the time about, that emotional eating is not bad. It is not bad. It's not something that we should be ashamed for. And I think during the pandemic is a really good example of that. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, especially when things were just happening and like the shelter in place orders came in, like I wanted comfort foods. I wanted like warm, gooey, delicious foods, right? Like I don't want like a cold salad, like absolutely not.
You know, that is not what I need foods that bring me emotional comfort. That is technically emotional eating, and it's beautiful, right? It's a form of self-care when we listen to what we need physically and emotionally, and we listen to that and we nourish our brain and our bodies with that, right? Now, I also understand that some people say, well, Whitney, if I ate a little bit of that, or if I ate that, I would eat all of it, right? And I go back to, we actually know, evidence shows, research shows that when we deprive ourselves of certain food groups or certain foods that we know we like and that taste good, naturally their brain is going to crave it. And so when we finally get it, like if I never eat it and it's a pandemic and so I'm going to eat this gooey, delicious cinnamon roll and I never get it, my brain is going to go into this place of get it all because you're not going to get it again, right? So I might eat 10 cinnamon rolls. And so that actually doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or that I failed or that I'm weak. It's actually my brain doing this cool thing to say, all right, if you're not going to give me this delicious thing again, like I want to get as much as I can. So that's why in my work, especially with clients, we talk a lot about this intuitive eating principle, which is balancing what your body's asking for, what sounds good, what you need for nourishment, for example. Like I intentionally ate a bigger, more protein and carb filled breakfast this morning because I knew I was giving this presentation. So I wanted more brain fuel this morning. So that's part of intuitive eating, is recognizing, what am I up against today? If we have a really scary doctor's appointment, right? Or we're worried that if someone has COVID, right? And you're thinking, what does my body need? What are the nutrients that my brain needs in this moment? So.
Okay, so the risk factors affecting your health during the pandemic. So this is really, as Whitney mentioned in the beginning, we're getting flooded with advertisements with things for diet culture, the things you should be doing and getting off the couch, all of that during the pandemic. And so the picture on the left of the little heart on the plate is from Northwestern Medicine, and the title of it was "Avoid Weight Gain During the Pandemic." And so we look at this and we think, does it look appetizing? We were discussing before, we don't even know what it is. We don't know if it's bread. We don't know if it's vegetable. We have no idea what it is.
I feel like I could use it as like a doorstop.
Yeah, it's like rubber for sure. And yeah, it's gross. And then there's a tape measure next to it. And what does that even mean? And so this doesn't look appetizing. Does that mean that I need to eat that tiny thing of bread and then weigh myself after, or measure myself after? What is it implying? And
it's from a hospital, right? So it feels legit.
Yeah.
It feels legit. So if I see that picture on social media, even if I'm scrolling or on my email, that picture, even if I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good, it's getting absorbed into my brain somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So then if I'm gonna go pick up Chinese takeout for dinner, that picture, that image might come back in my brain as like,
oh, well, this wasn't even close to what a hospital is saying I should be eating during a pandemic, right? It's a lot of shame in that.
Yeah, and we see things like that all the time from WebMD, from all different sorts of sources that are supposed to be reliable. So that's going to come back to us then when we do treat ourselves, when we do eat what our body is needing in the time. Mm-hmm. And then the picture on the right is also shaming. This is, the dog laying on the couch, but covered in food, eating snacks, watching TV, implying that if I need to stay home and watch TV one day and eat some snacks, then I'm lazy and I'm a slob and I'm going to gain weight, or I am gaining weight, and that's not okay. And yeah, just showing somebody that's lazy, dirty, all of that, simply because they're watching TV with a snack.
Yeah, there's a huge movement. I mean, I could talk all day on this, but there's a huge movement in our culture around fat stigma and trying to get rid of the stigma around the word fat. And so there's a lot of individuals in our country, around the world, but specifically in this country too, who are trying to reclaim that word of being labeled or being called fat as not something that's negative.
And so I just wanted to plant that seed in case anybody's interested in looking more into that. I think especially because I know we have clinicians, providers, individuals of all different backgrounds and specialties probably listening and watching this. And I just want to plant that seed for you that there's a lot of individuals who are okay with and actually own the word fat. And it's not something that we need to be afraid of. For example, I don't shy away from the word fat at all. And I think when we're afraid of it, it's that in itself is kind of fat phobic. And so fat is a nutrient. Fat is something that is out there. We don't have to be afraid to call it for what it is. And if someone is comfortable and confident with that term for themselves, then embrace it, right? Then own it. Just to plant that seed.
Yeah, and if someone says it, not to correct them and
yeah.
say, oh
no, you're not.
Especially if it's something where they're trying to reclaim and they're owning that.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And then there was a recent study at the CDC that found that 40% of Americans are suffering from at least one mental health condition because of the pandemic. So that goes back to that puzzle piece of your mental health, that if you are not focusing on that, your entire health and wellness is going to kind of be out of whack.
Yeah. it's a lot. It was more than I thought it would be. I mean,
Yeah.
yes and no, I guess, but also speaks to just how
How hard this has been for everyone. Everyone. It has hit everyone. Nobody's immune to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the truth about the quarantine 15. So we hear that a lot, that people are gaining the quarantine 15. We talked about diet culture kind of taking advantage of that. But what the truth is that stress really activates our central nervous system. So we go in sort of that fight or flight mode. This has evolved. This comes from our ancestors that went through times of stress and that food scarcity. I can never say that word. And those extreme levels of stress. And so when our stress levels increase, so does our cortisol levels and our adrenaline. And so naturally we are hungrier. And with that, our metabolism slows down. So when you're in that fight or flight mode, your body is saying, I'm not sure when I'm going to get these fats and this nutrition again. So I'm going to hold on to it. So your fat storage goes up, your metabolism slows down. So you're naturally gaining weight. And that weight gain is really our way of our bodies trying to sort of save our lives when we're in a really high stressful situation.
So this is where I would say kind of this tools and skills come in. Okay, so my friends around here might have to like pull me off the camera because I could talk about this all day, right? I get real jazzed. This is where I get real jazzed about this stuff, you guys. So let's talk about what to do with all this. Kind of, we talked about the risk factors. We talked
About why we feel the shame and guilt. So what in the world do we do with it? There is a concept out there that has recently come about. It's not one person, of course, gets credit. It's a whole community of individuals kind of claiming this idea of radical self-love. Why do we say radical? Because it is. Because we are taught and conditioned every single day to not love ourselves. Because if we all did, if we loved ourselves for who we are naturally, we wouldn't buy all the things, right? We wouldn't buy a new wardrobe every season. We wouldn't shop at Target or Amazon, like not to say that I don't do that every day, but we wouldn't buy all the creams and the products, and people wouldn't spend millions of dollars on plastic surgery, right? So it is radical. It is radical because it's not the norm. The quote that Sonia Renee Taylor did, which I'll show you the book that she wrote, which I love, just showing people the cover. Sometimes my clients are like, oh God, I should read that. And I'm like, you should. And the fact that you're cringing means you should probably read it. But the quote that she gives that to define radical self-love is the voice of doubt, shame, and guilt blaring in our heads is not our voice. It is a voice we have been given by a society steeped in shame. It is the outside voice. Our authentic voice, our inside voice, is the voice of radical self-love, right? So when we feel like, I talk to clients about like the shoulds, right? I should eat that. I should work out. I should get more sleep. I should go on that date when I'm really not interested in that person. Every time we find ourselves doing the should, most likely that is the outside voice, right? Telling us that we should do something that our brain, that our body, that our soul is telling us, yeah, not so much, right? And that inside voice is usually our authentic voice, but it's somewhere along the way, or I should say millions of places along the way, as we've grown up, we are made to feel that that inside voice is not enough, is not good enough, is not smart enough, is not worthy enough. So we should listen to all these outside shoulds, right? To change that inside voice.
And yeah, just to kind of piggyback off you, the radical self-love always kind of reminds me of when you're little.
Yeah.
And before you are basically told how you should feel and how all of that you think you're the fastest person ever, and you dress however you want, and you wear, underwear with boots, and you think you look awesome, and just really all of that before society kind of tells us how we should feel and all of that.
Absolutely. Body gratitude and body acceptance. So it's a shift, right? So it's a shift from body shame of I need to change it, my body is not good enough, to get all the way to body love and absolutely loving your body. Let's be honest, is too much of a jump, and it's inauthentic. It just is. Let's be real. So we are conditioned to hate our body so that we buy all these things and do all these things to change it. If we start to be grateful for what our body is doing for us, even if we don't like it, okay? So let the dislike or the disdain, or maybe for some of you, body hatred, let it be there, okay? And let some of that gratitude in with, I don't like the way my body looks, but I'm really grateful that my legs, that my arms helped me walk my dog today, and I got to see these beautiful trees, right? And I got to see that really hilarious looking dog on the path, right? Let your body, or I should say, recognize what your body is doing for you every day, even if you don't like the way it looks, right? Or don't like the way it feels. That's how we start to shift. So we're rewiring the brain to look and feel about the body and be grateful for what it's doing for us, which is really what our body's about, right? It's helping us take us through this life that we are trying to live. And then the body acceptance comes with, we don't accept our bodies for what it is right in this moment. I mean, we can, that's fine. But body acceptance is, I'm going to love and be grateful for my body, no matter how it looks, right? So my body may have changed throughout the pandemic as I'm trying to nourish it, and life has been changing and things have been very hectic and unknown and uncertain and stressful. And I'm so grateful that my body has helped me go through every day, right? And play with my kids and hug my husband and show up and do all these probably a little too much hands gestures like I do in session and freak my clients out. But my body helps me do all those things. I wouldn't be able to be the therapist, the wife, the mother, the friend, the daughter, the sister that I am without this body, right? So that doesn't change the way it looks. It doesn't matter. And so at least challenging some of those thoughts for yourself or for the people that you're working with on that. The third one, to prioritize nourishment with all the food groups. And this is really important. This is my, one of the basis of my beliefs and practice is that all food is good food, that I believe everything in moderation. You come to my home, you will never ever hear the term junk food or crap food or unhealthy, because I don't think those terms exist. They shouldn't exist, right? Because all food is good food. All food that is edible, my toddler would disagree because she eats like chalk and bark and stuff, but like all food that is edible has nutrition, right? It has nutrients that our body needs to live. So if you feel like, oh, Whitney, but you don't really need carbs, ask yourself, who told me that? Where did I hear that? And what were they selling, right? And so all food, cinnamon rolls, pixie sticks, right? I was thinking like fruit snacks because I open like 50 a day, but like, you know, these things all have nutrients that our body needs. So remember that as you feel any shame of like, I shouldn't have eaten that or I ate too much of that, remind yourself that I just gave my body what it needed, the nourishment it needed. We talked about this a little bit, is that self-compassion and mindful self-care. I'm not talking about, which is great by the way, but like bubble baths and face masks, like, yes, that's great. It is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a bubble bath and I love a face mask, but those aren't necessarily going to be things that are going to fill up my cup per se. Maybe somebody else's, that's fine. But mindful self-care is different, right? Mindful self-care is really focusing on listening to what our body needs. And I might have had plans to go meet a friend and walk at the park and go to a playground with our kids, but my body is exhausted and it's telling me it needs to rest. And so I reschedule that, right? Because that's what I need. That's what my body is asking for. So just being very, very compassionate to our bodies, almost like we would, right, to a friend or a relative that says they're not feeling good or they need to rest. Try and show yourself kind of the same compassion.
Yeah, and I feel like in America, especially, we have a society where it feels like if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, and you know, the pandemic has sort of helped us open our eyes to that, but seeing that we need to push through, like it's strong to still go to the gym, go to work, things like that when you're not feeling good, when really your body just needs that rest to fight that off.
That's so true. So here's a concept called body scripture. Now, this has nothing to do with a religious belief, okay? But the practice of individuals who do practice a specific religious, well, I should say identify with a religious practice, a belief, or practice it on a daily basis, is scripture, right? A lot of people read scripture over and over again. So one thing I work with on a lot of my clients is developing their own body scripture. And so that would be their scripture. Some of us might call it a mantra, but maybe a little bit longer, whether it's a story, whether it's a letter, whether it's 2 or 3 sentences about what is something that they want to kind of say over and over again, read over and over again, and try to really start to have that soak in. So especially when clients are practicing a certain faith, this practice or this tool can be really helpful for them. And so, especially if they're reading scripture, religious scripture, they can also read this. They can put it on their mirror. They can put it on the screensaver of their phone and just kind of read that and rehearse that, right? This is very similar to people of certain religious practices that can rehearse, or not rehearse, recite, right, a specific, the Lord's Prayer, right? A lot of people of different Christian faiths can recite that without anyone telling them to, even if they needed to. And I just always think, wouldn't that be cool if we had our own body scripture that was honoring our body and how amazing it was and how grateful for we are, if we could just recite that to ourselves, especially in times of stress, of uncertainty, of even maybe days or times of body hatred too. Joyful movement is what some might call exercise. I don't. I call exercise joyful movement. And the reason being is because there's a lot of forms of movement that I do not enjoy. I just don't. And if I'm doing them, AKA running, then someone's probably chasing me. Like, I don't enjoy that, right? Now, other people do, and that brings them joy and it brings them happiness and peace. For me, that's other kinds of movement. So I'm going to move my body as a way to take care of it, as a way to honor it, not as a way to punish it, right? And a lot of people get into that mind frame, again, because we're conditioned that way, especially coaches and teachers and families, sometimes friends, of, yeah, but you'll burn this many calories if you do it, or you'll lose this amount of weight if you do it. Not to mention, do you like it? Like, is it fun? Do you enjoy it? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like I do not have time to do an hour a day of punishment or something I don't like. Like, I just feel like life's too short for that. So getting back to actually asking yourself, and I do this with my clients, and they'll say, well, they'll say like, well, I'm a dancer or I'm a runner. And I always ask them, like, do you like it? What do you like about it? And if you love it and you're passionate about it and it fuels you, then that's great. Let's just make sure your body is fueled enough to do that activity, that movement. But if it's not, then we need to reevaluate, or maybe it was, right? But all these other pieces start distorting that movement, right? So whatever the movement is, think about, does it bring me joy? Do I feel fueled? Not as my guilt lessened, but do I feel fueled? Do I feel like this is honoring my body when I do it?
Yeah,
or just some questions.
Not punishing yourself on days when you can't do it and when you do not want to do it, and not using it as a punishment when you are nourishing your body and trying to, then go work out or exercise because of what you ate.
Exactly. Valued living, I think we keep touching on, but just really even the movement piece, I think, is important. If you can integrate it into what you value, right? So if you really value being around people that you feel connected with, then move your body along with them, right? Go for a walk, or maybe you guys are playing basketball together, right? Or go play tennis, or ways that you can move your body in a way that is also in line with your values. Sometimes that takes more thought, but it's totally worth it, right? Because then you're really fueled up afterwards. Part of that valued living is what brings us joy, right? And what helps us manage those times of extreme stress and anxiety, like we're all going through. Mindful eating is a process that takes a lot of practice, and something I still practice. Some days I really struggle with. Some days it's hard and it's overwhelming, and some days it's smooth and easy, and that's part of it, right? The days that it's really hard, and I'll tell you what it is actually, are days that I know, I check in with myself and know, okay, there's other things going on in my life and my brain that I'm either avoiding or I just don't know how to handle. And so I keep my thoughts, right, keep hijacking out of what I'm trying to do. And that's okay, right? It's just more to learn from. So mindful eating, I would like to challenge everyone to just one meal a week. So not a day, that's probably too much to ask. Would be awesome, by the way, but one meal a week. If you can sit there for at least 30 minutes and don't have a phone, don't have TV, don't even have, if someone's around you, don't even talk to them, but really sit there and eat for 30 minutes, which is way harder than it sounds, by the way, because I'm always like, I could be doing this, I could be doing this, like, I got to check this on my phone. But 30 minutes to sit there and really, when you're eating your food, you're being grateful for what you're eating. You're thinking about the taste, the texture, right? All of that in your mouth, the temperature, right? What kind of nutrients are in that, and what areas of your body it's nourishing, what those nutrients are going to give you the rest of the day. And really it's coming back to the present moment and refocusing on this. This has been so much harder during the pandemic, like for me, so much harder. And all the more reason I think of why I refocus, and I've tried to do it more often because it is harder. But really coming back to what I know to be true and what I know that I can control. And that's sometimes what I'm eating and what it's doing to my body when the world feels very out of control, right? So just kind of another way to refocus on something we know to be true and what we know we can control. We talked about this a little bit already, praising others for what you value about them instead of their appearance.
This is so hard.
Yeah.
Harder than, it sounds. And just because I think everybody around us, that's what you're so conditioned to do. And the holidays is a great example, like going home and just getting all the praise if you're lower in weight than you were before.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Totally.
But I was passionate about that one.
The holidays are hard. Yeah. The holidays are a really hard one, because you see family members, a lot of times, of friends you haven't seen in a while. I'm like, oh, you look great, or oh, you look different, and you're like, oh, what does that mean? You know, and it can be really triggering, right? And that's where, I mean, again, I might not be the most popular person at my family gatherings for this, but if anybody says something like that, I'm always like, yeah, well, still the same person, still have my sparkling personality. And they're like, okay, that's fine. But just trying to teach people in that way of how I look and how my body looks has nothing to do with who I am. The last one, practicing picturing the moment. This is one I work on all the time, and I do it myself all the time, and can be really helpful, but also really hard. Is that we live in a society, right, where we're constantly taking pictures, we're looking at pictures, we're evaluating pictures of other people, aka social media. We are thinking about ourselves, oh, that's so funny, or that's so cute, or that looks so delicious, I'm gonna take a picture of it. Pictures are everywhere. And the self-critic in us, which, as you guys know, we all have, right, comes out a lot of times when we look at a picture of, oh, I don't like that. Oh, delete that. I don't like the way I look in that. Oh gosh, my arm, I look too pale, all of those things. I bet if any of you guys pull up a picture right now on your phone of over the last month, and I said, look at yourself, what are the first 5 things that come to your mind? I'm going to guess it would probably be all criticisms, or at least most of them. And that's, again, the way we're conditioned. Hence, you have 8,000 filters to choose from, right? You have graphics to choose from to change yourself. You have emojis, or all my teen clients would be making fun of me right now because I'm not saying the right thing, but like on Snapchat, I don't know what they're called, right? But filters, whatever. It's all telling us, change who you are, change who you are. What you just took, don't you dare put it out there in the universe because it's not good enough, right? And so, again, conditioned to make us feel and believe that how we are in our authentic form is not good enough. So when you look at pictures, here's the practice. Again, this is how we rewire our brain is, here comes a self-critic, like, but you look, but delete. And I want you to intentionally come forward with, what does that picture represent? What does that picture help me remember? What am I trying to capture in that moment or with that picture, right? That's what pictures are actually for. I know we forgot about that, but that's what pictures are for. A lot of you guys might remember back in the day when you'd go to like CVS or Walgreens and you were so excited to pick up your pictures that you found from the disposable camera that you took like 6 months, a year ago, and you're like, I cannot wait to see this. And you look at the pictures and you're like, that was so funny, or that was so much fun, I totally forgot about that. Like, that process is gone, right? Now it's immediately right there, and we're conditioned to criticize, get rid of, delete, or do it again. You know, like, you don't want to be that person in your friends or family that's like, we have to take the 18th picture because I still don't like the way I look. Like, you know what I mean? So instead it's, what does this picture represent? I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, well, and you're sort of shamed if you do have that radical self-love. Like, if somebody looked at the first picture and said, I look amazing in that.
Yeah,
Everyone would be like, what?
that's
Like,
true.
yeah,
That's not as, it's not as common as the person that's like, oh, can we take it again?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is, go on to social media and kind of pictures too. This is something I just want you guys to think about, right? So if it's natural for us to compare ourselves on social media of any kind, again, this is not a dig at one specific social media. That's a different presentation. But this is just in general. It's here, it's not going anywhere. So let's figure out how to work with it. So if you're finding yourself comparing, which is probably natural, right? Like, I don't have those clothes. I don't have that makeup. I don't have that body. I don't eat the way that person is eating. I don't do those exercise that person is doing. Thinking about more like TikTok. Ask yourself, is this person trying to sell something or get more likes and shares? What is this person or this company, what are they trying to get from me, right? Is this person or group helping me to feel more full of life and hopeful, or not? Or are they trying to make me feel more ashamed or that I'm not good enough? And if you find yourself really comparing yourself to a person, right, or a group or a business on social media, ask yourself, if you can in the moment or later, if it's too distressing, like, what buttons is this pushing or what's coming up for me that is making me feel so ashamed? And why is this picture or this person's life or this snapshot making me feel like I'm not enough? What else is there? Why this, right? I know that's like the therapist in me, but sometimes it's that person resembles somebody, right? Or they said something that someone else told me that was hurtful. I mean, those kinds of things, right? And if any of those are happening and you answer these questions and you feel like, gosh, I just continue to compare myself to that person, or I feel like I'm not good enough when I see their posts, then unfollow them or hide them. I would say that's one of the most important means of self-care in the world that we live in right now. You do that for yourself, right? That person does not need their like, they're fine. So take care of yourself in that way. So before I forget, the second code word, so write it down, is fuel, as in fueling your body and fueling your brain, okay? Second one is fuel. All right, we're getting close, stay with us. This is just one of those quotes that I love, I absolutely love, and that's loving your body isn't believing your body looks good. It's knowing your body is good regardless of how it looks. It's understanding that your body is an instrument for your use, not an ornament to be admired. And that's something that I remind myself of, and I talk to my clients about a lot, is, do you want other people to place as much value on your body as you place value on it yourself? If not, then let's start to change that, right? But we have to change it ourselves before we can expect other people to as well. So it's a process for sure. See, there's some of the quotes that I really like, you guys. This first one makes me laugh. I use it frequently.
Love that one.
Because I also say this in my head a lot too, especially when as we were talking about, sometimes when I have like imposter syndrome with someone that I'm meeting, that I'm working with, even sometimes with clients that are, some of my clients who are incredibly educated and successful, you know, we all have that imposter syndrome sometime, and we all make mistakes. So anyways, I always like that one. The other one is, I'm so glad I spent my entire life trying to change my body. Said no one ever, right? I've never been, and I hope I'm never at a celebration of life where someone's like, oh God, he just had the best six pack. Like, nobody says that. If they do, I'd run away from them.
I was talking really quick. I was talking to a friend the other day who was saying her 78-year-old grandma was on a diet. And she was like, Grandma, what? Like, you were going to go out on a diet. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And that's, I came back to that quote. And I heard that.
That's when diet culture is strong. I think the overall arching theme is that losing weight is not your life's purpose, right? We are all destined for so much bigger and better things, yet people spend the majority of their days and therefore their life being on a diet or trying to lose weight. Move your body to celebrate what it can do, not to punish it for what you ate. We talked a little bit about that. Here's some books that I would highly, highly recommend. Some of these we've talked about. The bottom right is The Body Is Not an Apology, and that's that self-compassion, radical self-love, a lot that we talked about. So I recommend these for everybody and for a lot of my clients. Obviously the top right, I don't recommend to my teenage clients, although they would love it, but a lot of my adult clients. So, and then podcasts also, I'm a big podcast person, especially when you're driving. These are 6 of the probably 10 or 12 that I love and listen to. So take notes, write these down if you want to listen to any of them for more resources, a lot more people that speak much more eloquently than I do. So I just gave you evidence too. All right, last one. Only thing, I actually just sent this to one of my clients the other day too. The only thing that was ever wrong with me was my belief that there was something wrong with me. I quit spending my life trying to control myself and began to trust myself. We only control what we don't trust. We can either control ourselves or love ourselves, but we can't do both. Love is the opposite of control. Love demands trust. What the world needs is more women who have quit fearing themselves and started trusting themselves. What the world needs is masses of women who are entirely out of control. Love that.
Awesome. So thank you so much for allowing us to kind of experience an inner life, childlike love for ourselves and how to nourish our body during a pandemic. So we do have a few questions, and also we wanted to repeat the 2 code words for this presentation that you'll need to fill out in the CEU questionnaire is balance and fuel. So again, balance and fuel. So our first question is, if I already have a horrible eating pattern that is pretty consistent, how do I break that?
Ooh, good question. I would say starting with self-compassion.
Starting with challenging the guilt and shame that you feel from that eating pattern and questioning where that comes from, questioning who makes up that outer voice, because as the question said, the eating pattern or the out of control eating pattern says nothing about who you are as a person. It says everything around trying to figure out and manage some really difficult emotions, some difficult things. And so anytime that we are eating in a way that is not nourishing our body, whether it feels out of control or under control, meaning we're overly controlling our food and possibly restricting, that is all a coping skill. That's all a coping skill for something bigger and deeper. And so I would say to kind of try to unpack that when you are engaging in an eating pattern that you feel like isn't nourishing your body in a way that it needs or it's asking for, kind of asking yourself, what am I trying to fill? What am I trying to avoid? What am I trying to mask? Those kinds of things. And that's a lot of what work I do with my clients. So obviously if you're open to therapy or you can get that support, that's a really fun thing to talk about and work through too in therapy.
Yeah, and just kind of asking yourself, who told me this was horrible, what makes it horrible, and what other piece of the puzzle am I maybe neglecting because I am filling it with the foods that I don't feel like are nourishing my body.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both for everything that you've shared with us today. So now just